Well, here we are, the last book of the series. Let's see how it all wraps up. Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows is the 7th and final book in the series. It was published on July 21st, 2007. I remember when this came out. I also remember a lot of the hype building to it. Now, at the time, I was likely reading books 2, 3, or 4. I can't safely say which one, but I do distinctly remember on the day the book came out, my parents went to the midnight book release and bought 2 copies of the book so that they could read the story at the same time. When I was finally old enough to read this book, I read it within the span of a week. Sadly, I can't read that fast anymore, but it's still an amazing experience. Anyway, enough reminiscing, let's begin. The story begins with Voldemort meeting up with all the Death Eaters and talking about how far they are in the process of taking over the Ministry. Pius Thickniece has been put under the Imperius Curse, and the plan is for him to rise in the ranks to become Voldemort's puppet minister. The other plan is for Voldemort to find Harry and kill him as soon as he turns 17. Which is soon. Also, Voldemort believes he can't properly hurt Harry due to the twin core connection of their 2 wands, so he borrows Lucius's wand. Well, now let's go back to our final summer with the Dursleys. Harry is frustrated while reading Dumbledore's obituary and hearing about the biography that Rita Skeeter is writing about Dumbledore. It seems he didn't know the old man as well as he thought. Well, it can't really be helped now, since it took some time for him to convince the Dursleys to pack up and leave, since Voldemort and the Death Eaters can, and will, stop by to torture and kill them in order to get to Harry. The Dursleys pack up and set off with a couple of wizards to escort them to a safe house. Then a bunch of wizards show up to get ready to move Harry to a safe house, but there's been a change in the plan. You see, Moody and the others suspect that the Ministry has been infiltrated, especially since they're watching the Dursleys' fireplace and making sure no one apparates away from the house. Apparently the claim is for protection, but we know better. So the new plan is that Ron, Hermione, Fred, George, Fleur, and Mundungus will take some Polyjuice Potion to disguise themselves as Harry. That way Voldemort and the Death Eaters will be thrown off. They'll each go to a different safe house and then take a portkey to the burrow. Well, they were right to be cautious since Voldemort and the Death Eaters were waiting for them, but they didn't expect 7 Harrys. Hedwig is killed in the scuffle of death spells being blasted left and right, and once Harry cast the spell Expelliarmus, the Death Eaters knew instantly that this Harry was the real one. So naturally, Voldemort has popped in to kill Harry, but Harry successfully defends himself just in time for Hagrid to crash land into the yard of Ted and Andromeda Tonks. The motorcycle is badly wrecked, but at least they made it in time for their portkey. Once at the burrow, we learned that Moody had been killed, and Mundungus fled. George also lost an ear in the scuffle. Thankfully, everyone else is okay. Harry, Ron, and Hermione don't plan to stay long. They plan to stay for Bill and Fleur's wedding, though, which is the day after Harry's birthday. You see, Ron and Hermione feared for the safety of their families. Ron, Arthur, and the twins helped him make the ghoul in the attic look like him with Spattergroit so that he would appear too ill to go to school. Hermione wiped her parents' memories and sent them to Australia. She intends to undo the spell once it's safe. It's also here that we learn from Hermione what properly destroys a Horcrux, since she's been preparing for the journey and finally found the right books. It has to be something so destructive that the Horcrux can't repair itself. Basilisk venom is one of the ways, but they don't have any fangs, so they'll have to find another way. Now, Harry has started to have visions about Voldemort again. Voldemort has kidnapped Mr. Ollivander about a year ago, and he was the one who told him to try using a different wand. But it turns out that Lucius's wand shattered when Harry was defending himself in the sky. Now Voldemort is asking Ollivander about something else. A new wand? Perhaps. All he knows is that someone called Grigorovich has what he seeks. Anyway, it's Harry's birthday! Yay! But before anyone can celebrate and open presents, Scrimgeour has stopped by with Dumbledore's will since Harry, Ron, and Hermione have inherited some of Dumbledore's things. Harry inherited the first snitch he caught, which seems to have something inside it, but Harry can't open it. Ron inherited the Deluminator, basically a cigarette lighter that can take light from places and put it back. We actually saw it in the first book. Anyway, Hermione inherited Dumbledore's copy of the Tales of Beetle the Bard, which is a collection of wizard fairy tales. Now, Harry had also inherited the Sword of Gryffindor, but they weren't permitted to have it since it's a historical artifact. Well, that's annoying. Anyway, the following day is Bill and Fleur's wedding. Harry is disguised as a Weasley cousin. The party seems to go well, and Harry finally remembers where he heard the name Grigorovich. He made Crumb's wand. But we can't celebrate now. Kingsley sends his Patronus to warn everyone that Scrimgeour had been killed and the Death Eaters are coming. Hermione grabbed Ron and Harry in the scuffle, and they disapparate to Tottenham Road. Hermione thankfully had packed everything they might need for the journey. Now, as they're discussing what to do to find the locket, 2 Death Eaters ambush them. Harry and friends manage to escape to Grimmauld Place. While at Grimmauld Place, Hermione packs the portrait of Phineas Nigellus since he could be spying on them as Snape is now headmaster at Hogwarts. It is here at Grimmauld Place that Harry finds out who R.A.B. is. It's Sirius's younger brother, Regulus, who had been a Death Eater but had been killed years ago for trying to leave. Harry summons Kreacher and asks him about Regulus. Apparently, Kreacher went with Voldemort to the cave where he hid the locket. Voldemort wanted to test his potion on something expendable. However, Kreacher was able to escape the Inferi since house elves can operate pretty much anywhere. Now, Regulus had figured out what the locket actually was and went back with Kreacher to the cave to pick up the locket and replace it with a fake one. Regulus's last command to Kreacher before he was carried off by the Inferi was for Kreacher to destroy the locket. While Kreacher tried everything to destroy it, he couldn't. He was able to save the locket from the rubbish pile when Harry and friends were cleaning out the house 2 years prior, but shortly after Sirius's death, Mundungus had popped in and stolen a lot of things, including the locket. Harry tells Kreacher to find Mundungus and bring him to Grimmauld Place. Harry also gives Kreacher the fake locket, showing Kreacher that kindness made him that much more loyal to Harry. It takes Kreacher a while to find him. In the meantime, Remus stops by to ask to join the party, but during the discussion, Harry finds out that Tonks is pregnant. Harry knows that Remus could be a big help, but he wants him to be there for his baby despite all his fears. Shortly after Remus leaves, Kreacher returns with Mundungus. Mundungus confesses that he did steal the locket, but he gave it to some toad-like woman who was going to arrest him for selling magical artifacts without a proper license. Yeah, Umbridge has the locket now. Well, shoot! The only way Harry and friends can probably get the locket is by breaking into the Ministry. They plan for a while, and during that time, Kreacher has been super kind to all of them. The day finally comes for them to break into the Ministry. Since it would look suspicious to see 3 unconscious people in one place, the plan is to knock one person out and then give the other 2 some of Fred and George's candies. With the help of a stock of Polyjuice potion, they're able to sneak in. Here we learn that the Ministry has been rounding up Muggleborns for inspection since it's Voldemort's plan to make a pureblood society. Harry and friends search everywhere for the locket, but they can't find it since Umbridge is wearing it. They are able to grab the locket off her, and Harry is able to save as many of the wizards being put on trial as possible. The plan is to escape back to Grimmauld Place, but Hermione was grabbed by Yaxley while apparating and brought him with them. She got him off her when they got there, but now they're in the middle of the woods. Hermione does have a tent ready though, but they can't risk going back to Grimmauld Place since it's likely overrun with Death Eaters now. None of them are able to destroy the locket, so to keep it safe, they each take turns wearing it. The dark magic of the Horcrux has affected each of them. It even got to a point that Harry wasn't able to cast a Patronus with it on. It's been affecting Ron, worst of all. Now, while moving around every day, they accidentally overhear another traveling party on the run. The party includes Ted, Dean, and a couple of goblins. Apparently back at Hogwarts, Ginny and a few others tried to take the sword of Gryffindor from Snape's office. It didn't end well and the sword was moved elsewhere, but according to the goblins, that sword is fake. Also, we learn that Luna's father, Xenophilius, has been promoting Harry in the Quibbler. Harry and friends decide to ask the portrait of Phineas Nigellus when the sword was last moved. Phineas tells them that the last time Dumbledore took the sword out was to break open the ring. Here, Harry and Hermione figure out that due to the sword being goblin-made, it absorbs things that make it stronger, which means the sword absorbed basilisk venom when Harry stabbed the basilisk 5 years ago. Ron's frustrations have built up enough to the point where he leaves the locket behind and leaves the party. Now it's just Harry and Hermione. Harry is still trying to figure out how they can find the sword. However, he does get the idea to go to Godric's Hollow. Harry wanted to go there for a while since that's where his family lived before they were killed. Since it's also a place Dumbledore lived with his family, Harry and Hermione believe that maybe the sword was left there for them to find, in the care of an old family friend, Bathilda Bagshot. Harry and Hermione go there in disguise and visit the graveyard. Hermione does find a strange grave, but we'll come back to that later. Harry was able to see the grave of his parents and later on was able to see the home they lived in. It was still preserved. Here, Harry and Hermione meet Bathilda Bagshot, who takes them to her home. Well, it's not Bathilda. It's actually Nagini in disguise. She attacks Harry and Hermione and summons Voldemort from his search for a thief who had stolen something from Grigorovich. Harry and Hermione are luckily able to escape just in time, but Hermione accidentally broke Harry's wand, and now Voldemort knows who the thief was. The thief was Gellert Grindelwald, a dark wizard from long ago and a man who used to be Dumbledore's best friend. Throughout the series, we actually hear about the famous duel that the two had many years ago. Dumbledore won, of course. Anyway, we'll come back to that later. One night, while Harry is keeping watch, he sees a Patronus of a doe. He follows the doe to a small pool where the Sword of Gryffindor is. Now, Harry goes to get it, but the locket, sensing its destruction, tries to drown Harry. Thankfully, Harry is saved by Ron, who came back through the light of the Deluminator. Harry has Ron destroy the locket with the sword shortly after. Now the whole team is back together. Yay! Oh yeah, we learned from Ron that they can't say Voldemort's name because the name's been jinxed to remove any and all protection spells and send Death Eaters their way. That's how they were found at Tottenham Road. Anyways, they destroyed one Horcrux. Now they just need to find 2 more and then deal with the snake. However, Harry and Hermione have been rather curious about a strange symbol they've been seeing frequently. Hermione wants to ask Xenophilius about it since he was wearing the symbol at Bill and Fleur's wedding, so they go to the Lovegoods home to ask. It seems Luna isn't here despite it being the Christmas break. Xenophilius tells them that the symbol is of the Deathly Hallows. The story goes that the three brothers came across Death, who gave them something they desired. The eldest brother got a very powerful wand. The second brother got a stone that could resurrect the dead, but not fully. And the youngest brother got a piece of Death's invisibility cloak. The eldest brother was killed by a thief in the night who stole his wand. The second brother killed himself after seeing that his dead fiancée was unhappy being back in the land of the living. The youngest brother evaded death for many years until it was his time. He then passed down the cloak to his son. Apparently most invisibility cloaks lose their invisibility after a while. Harry's cloak is very old. Well, we'll come back to that later. It seems Xenophilius double-crossed them because the Death Eaters had kidnapped Luna since he was promoting helping Harry instead of capturing him. Now, Harry and friends get out of there, but not before the Death Eaters see them so that they won't kill Xenophilius for lying. Xenophilius is actually arrested and sent to Azkaban. Harry starts to put some of the pieces together and finds out that he is a descendant of Ignatius Peverell, the youngest brother of the story. He also discovers that Dumbledore had actually found the Resurrection Stone inside Marvolo's ring, and he put it inside the snitch he left to Harry. Hermione naturally believes Harry to be conspiracy theorying a little too much. Besides, they need to focus on finding the rest of the Horcruxes. Well, in his excitement, Harry accidentally lets Voldemort's name slip since he knows that Voldemort has been seeking the Elder Wand. That summons the Snatchers right to their location. The Snatchers had already found Ted's group, but Ted himself had been killed along with one of the goblins and a wizard named Dirk. Dean and Griphook are the only survivors, and they had been captured. Harry and friends are captured and taken to Malfoy Manor. Thankfully, Hermione was able to jinx Harry's face so he wouldn't be recognized. We also learn that Bellatrix has been keeping the fake sword of Gryffindor in her vault. She seems very adamant to not let Voldemort stop by when she sees the real one and believes that someone broke into her vault. How interesting. Anyway, while it's torturing Hermione, the crew is thrown into the cellar. In the cellar are Luna and Ollivander. Harry is scrambling for something useful and finds a broken piece of the mirror he shattered a couple years ago. There he sees a blue eye that resembles Dumbledore's. Now, he had seen it before, but in his desperation, he calls for help. Griphook is taken upstairs to confirm whether or not the sword is real since he's a goblin. Dobby magically appears and gets Luna, Ollivander, and Dean out of there. Don't worry, he'll come back for Harry. Anyway, when Wormtail pops in to check, Harry and Ron jump him. Wormtail tries to kill Harry, but that moment of weakness when Harry reminds him who saved his life is what gets him killed. Wormtail is strangled by his brand new hand. Harry and Ron get upstairs, but it's Dobby who saves the day. Although he did drop the chandelier on Hermione and Griphook. They'll be fine. Just broken legs. But as Dobby escapes with Harry and friends, Bellatrix threw her knife at them. It hit Dobby. Dobby's last service to Harry was taking him to Shell Cottage, Bill and Fleur's home. Harry buries him there. Now, while at the cottage, Remus stops by to let everyone know that Tonks had her baby. They named him Ted, after her father. Well, there's some good news and bad news. The good news is that Harry now suspects that another Horcrux must be in Bellatrix's vault at Gringotts if she was that desperate to not summon Voldemort in case someone had broken into her vault. The bad news is that after interrogating and killing Grindelwald, he finds the Elder Wand in the cold, dead hands of Albus Dumbledore. Well, shoot! Better get to work on those Horcruxes then. Griphook helps Harry and friends break into Gringotts. Hermione disguises herself as Bellatrix to get in, but they have to resort to the Imperius Curse to really get in. Luckily, they make it into the vault and find the cup of Helga Hufflepuff. There's just one problem. Griphook stole the sword from them and sent the goblins and other security on them. Harry and his friends escape by freeing the dragon nearby and jumping into a lake. Well, it seems Voldemort now knows that Harry and friends have been hunting Horcruxes. Harry sees that the last one is at Hogwarts. They still don't know what it could be, but it doesn't hurt to check and look around. Harry and friends apparate to Hogsmeade, where they trigger the alarm, but they're saved by Dumbledore's brother, Aberforth, the barman of the Hogshead. Aberforth actually has the other mirror that Sirius had. Albus left him with instructions to keep an eye on Harry. Aberforth was also the one who sent Dobby to help them. Well, there's more good news. There's a passage to the Hog's Head leading directly to the Room of Requirement. Neville leads Harry and friends through the secret passage. Apparently, Hogwarts has been worse lately. Neville and a few others have started a small resistance, but he had to go into hiding because the Death Eaters didn't have any leverage against him as his grandmother fled. Inside the Room of Requirement are a lot of other students who needed to disappear. Members of the Order of the Phoenix and several others are summoned to Hogwarts shortly after. Even Percy has decided to join his family in the fight. They all believe Harry has a plan to take the school back. Harry didn't have a plan and admits that, but he does learn that there is an artifact Voldemort might have wanted to turn into a Horcrux. The lost diadem of Rowena Ravenclaw. It's said that whoever wears it on their head gains wisdom. Now, Harry goes to the Ravenclaw common room with Luna to see what it looks like, but they're ambushed by Electo Caro, who summons Voldemort. Voldemort takes a while to get there, though, since he's checking all of his Horcrux hiding places. Luna stuns Electo, and not long after, when Amicus pops in with McGonagall, Harry knocks out Amicus. McGonagall is pleased to see Harry. They all need to raise defenses, though, since Voldemort's going to be popping in soon. McGonagall and a couple other professors fight Snape, and he flees. All of the students are sent to evacuate through the Room of Requirement. Some of the older students do stay behind to fight, though. Harry realizes in the scuffle that the diadem hasn't been found in living memory, so he seeks the ghost of Ravenclaw, the Grey Lady. She tells him that she was the one who stole it long ago, as she is Rowena Ravenclaw's daughter, Helena. She hid it in Albania and told the story to Tom Riddle long ago. So that explains why Voldemort was in Albania for 10 whole years. The battle has begun! Harry is still trying to find the diadem, but realizes that he had seen it before when hiding his old potions book. He had placed it on a wig, which he placed on a stone bust. Ron and Hermione run into Harry with the successfully destroyed Hufflepuff cup. It seems Ron picked up a little parcel tongue from Harry. Ron and Hermione entered the Chamber of Secrets and used the fangs from the basilisk skeleton to do the job. Now, inside the Room of Requirement, Harry and friends are ambushed by Malfoy, Crabbe, and Goyle. Crabbe casts Fiend Fire, and it gets out of control, which ends up killing him. Harry successfully grabs the diadem and saves Malfoy and Goyle's lives. Once outside the room, the diadem breaks apart. Apparently, Fiend Fire is another way to destroy a Horcrux. Hermione never wanted to try it, though, since it can get out of control. All that remains is the snake. But how to get close to it? Harry sees that Voldemort is in the Shrieking Shack, so he, Ron, and Hermione sneak over there through the Whomping Willow passage in the middle of the battle. Voldemort is there with Snape, and Nagini is encased in a magic shield. Voldemort has Nagini kill Snape right there, since he believes Snape is the true master of the Elder Wand, and thus by killing him will Voldemort be able to wield its true power. Voldemort leaves shortly afterward. As Snape lies dying, he leaves memories for Harry to take to the Pensieve. Well, the battle stops for a while since there have been many casualties. Harry gets back to the castle to see the memories. Well, it turns out Snape actually knew Lily, Harry's mother. They were good friends and he loved her, though she did not love him, especially since she knew that he was in with a bad crowd and wanted to become a Death Eater. It also seems the reason why Snape regretted telling Voldemort about the prophecy was because he intended to kill Lily along with her son. Snape did beg Voldemort to spare her, but we know that wasn't the case. And so for all of these long years, Snape has been working with Dumbledore as a double agent. It also turns out that Dumbledore was already dying when the Curse of the Ring consumed his hand after he destroyed it. He wanted Snape to kill him at the right time, though. Snape was also the one with the Do Patronus, and the one who sent the sword to Harry and friends. The real one was hidden behind Dumbledore's portrait. Here we also learn that Harry is Voldemort's 7th Horcrux that he never intended to make. Voldemort has to be the one to kill Harry in order for it to be destroyed. Well, Harry leaves one final request with Neville to take down the snake. Then he goes into the Forbidden Forest. While there, he successfully opens the snitch and uses the Resurrection Stone to see his parents, Remus, and Sirius again. He wanted them to be with him as he walked to his death. And well, Harry Potter is killed. Or is he? It seems that while he does have the choice to go to the afterlife, he can still come back to his body. But the soul that connected him to Voldemort really is dead, though. Well, Harry plays dead for a good long while. It helped that Narcissa was the one who checked, but she didn't care who won, since all she wanted was to know whether or not her son was alive. Now, chaos breaks out shortly after Harry is shown to the crowd of everyone and set on the grass at Voldemort's feet. In that chaos, Neville successfully kills Nagini with the sword. Harry pulls out the invisibility cloak and does his best to save everyone he can. Molly duels Bellatrix and ends up killing her. And then the time finally comes for Harry to face Voldemort head-on. Here we learn that because Draco disarmed Dumbledore before he was killed, he was the true master of the Elder Wand. And Harry suspected that he is the true master of the Elder Wand since Draco had been disarmed earlier, since Harry stole his wand at his house. The duel begins and the spell Voldemort cast rebounds to him, killing him. The Dark Lord Voldemort has finally been destroyed for good. Much celebration is to be had, but Harry needs a few minutes. He takes the Elder Wand to the headmaster's office. Harry uses the Elder Wand to fix his own broken wand. He also tells Dumbledore's portrait that he dropped the Resurrection Stone in the Forbidden Forest. He plans to keep the cloak, but he doesn't want the Elder Wand. The plan is to keep it safe, so that when he dies of natural causes, the wand will not pass on to a new master. The story ends with an epilogue taking place 19 years later, where Harry and Ginny are taking their kids to platform 9 3/4 for their youngest son's first trip to Hogwarts. Well, that was a lot! Let's analyze. I'll talk more about this in the series analysis, but I love how everything just comes together. All that foreshadowing, all the things you thought were minor, it turns out they were important plot devices the whole time. Also, here we get a really good idea of the wizarding world under Voldemort's rule. The reason why Voldemort didn't take the minister's seat is because there would be an instant revolt. He had to have a puppet minister to carry out his bidding, and they had to paint a lot of things they did like it was a good thing. For example, Harry didn't have a bounty on his head just for being Voldemort's enemy. He was wanted for questioning about the death of Albus Dumbledore. That was the story they spread. Plus, literally everyone was being watched, and Muggleborns were being rounded up to basically be killed. Ron couldn't even go back to his house because he knew that if he did, he'd be caught and questioned immediately and his family could be hurt. That's how much they were watching. They couldn't even say Voldemort's name without getting caught. Now this is a scary world to live in. Almost reminds you of other science fiction books I've reviewed over the years, doesn't it? Dumbledore was viewed in a variety of different ways after his death. While his old friend Elphias Doge spoke kindly of him in the obituary, there were others who didn't think so after reading Rita Skeeter's book. It didn't tell the full story, obviously, and even got a lot of things wrong. I didn't go much into Dumbledore's backstory in the summary since I didn't find it that important to the plot, but Aberforth tells the truth to Harry when he asks about it. While yes, Dumbledore was friends with Grindelwald, they had a falling out after he likely killed his fragile younger sister, who was driven to madness by not being able to channel her magic properly. Even knowing the full truth showed he wasn't perfect. He wasn't meant to be a perfect character. None of the characters were meant to be portrayed as perfect. Now, I brought this up briefly, but Harry's kindness to Kreacher helped them immensely. It was actually jarring to see Kreacher behave so kindly to Harry and friends. He also joined the fight at the Battle of Hogwarts. He led the house elves into battle. Now, it's unknown if Kreacher continued to be in Harry's service for the years after, but I'd like to think that he stuck around for a while after the battle. Now, there were 2 weddings that happened during the story. Remus and Tonks got married earlier since, dark times were drawing near and this was the only chance they had. Then we have Bill and Fleur's wedding. Love is really important during dark times. Oh, sure, there's the possibility that things can go wrong, but it's important to have something to hope for. This is also why families stick together during these dark times, and it's why it's important for friends to stick together. Now, speaking of that, Voldemort's influence drove Harry, Ron, and Hermione apart. While the locket affected Ron the most and enhanced his insecurities, it did affect Harry and Hermione as well. In the end, they stuck together and finished the mission. Now, we saw a brief glimpse of what appeared to be heaven. While Dumbledore does say that it's all happening in Harry's head, it did happen. Also, as Harry realized through Dumbledore's words in his battle with Voldemort, that those who live without love do not live happy lives. Voldemort couldn't even feel remorse anymore. Remorse was the only way to bring the soul back together, but Voldemort genuinely couldn't feel anymore. It made him something that wasn't human, something that genuinely could not stand love or compassion, and that was his downfall. I'll talk more about the Deathly Hallows in the series analysis. They are crucial to the themes of the overall series. Overall, this is one of the best ways to end a story. While yes, the Horcrux hunting was fast-paced, the tension was still well done, and we got a good look at how the world was under Voldemort's rule. Also, the build-up to the final confrontation was beautifully done. While the final confrontation itself wasn't as action-oriented as we would have liked, it worked well for the book. I'd recommend this book for ages 12 and up. It's very intense. Things get a little violent here. The length of the book might also turn away younger readers. Alright. If you were around during the years 2010 and 2011, you would know that the Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows films were split into 2 parts, which started the trend of turning the last book adaptation in a series into 2 parts. Both are pretty accurate adaptations, but as I've said, a lot of liberties were taken to not only keep the movies under 3 hours, but also to keep the viewer engaged. And this is where I believe a lot of things had to be shoved in. For example, in the books, we meet Mundungus Fletcher in Book 5, while we don't see him at all until the Deathly Hallows movies since he was crucial to the plot. While it is likely that the 5th movie was made before the 7th book came out, I think it's important to wait until all the books in the series are out before making an adaptation, so that you can introduce plot-relevant things either as foreshadowing in the movie or just as a quick reference. I also think it's important to read the entire source material before going out of your way to make an adaptation, so that you don't have to shove in characters that weren't introduced in a previous adaptation. I I could go on and on about that, but let's save that for another review. Also, the Deathly Hallows video game was split into 2 parts as well. I'm most likely to keep up with the movies and cash in on the profit while the movie hype was still going on. Well, we've come to the end. Tune in for the series analysis coming soon. Happy reading!